Gosh, my favourite smell, you know, that coffee in the morning, I reckon. The nose really represents who I am and who I am professionally, because I've always, in my research career, my research has been really about the sense of smell.
It is a very good smell. It might be my favourite smell.
There are so many different chemicals that smell in the world. You could generate new smells all the time, and our sensory organ can distinguish between them. It's quite an amazing thing. And it's really still not understood how that happens. I stayed studying the sense of smell really because nobody else really in Australia was doing it, and I thought, oh well, I'll be one of a kind.
There's a characteristic of Alan that is apparent to me in our relationship together, and I think it's quite useful in the kind of science he does. I'd say he's not a herd animal, so I think that his research has been innovative because of that characteristic.
Some of the work that he's done is, is the best in the world for this field, for curing paralysis. There's now light at the end of the tunnel for a cure for paralysis.
I decided I wanted to do scientific research because I wanted to make a difference. All young people want to make a difference in the world when they start out, and I saw that maybe through doing biomedical science that I could make a difference.
Well, welcome everybody to this exhibition that features treasured objects chosen by the 2017 Australians of the Year national finalists. And it never fails really to delight and surprise me what people have chosen to express something personal and deep about themselves. Choosing an object to symbolise a life's journey is a big ask, and we really thank them all for taking the time to reflect upon this request and for trusting us with these items. And it's a way of sharing their inspirational stories, I think, with all of us, with the nation.
When I first was asked to present an object, I found a bit daunting. What does an object mean? I'm not really a stuff person, I don't have a sentimental attachment to things very much. And so I think of what might represent me would be what I've written, the thoughts rather than the things. It was my wife who came up with the idea of saying, that's an object that does represent what you do and who you are.
If life is indeed a journey, then this exhibition shines a little light on the paths that are travelled by this year's finalists. This year's 8 national finalists include an advocate for living beyond dementia, a speech pathologist improving literacy in the justice system, a groundbreaking biomedical scientist, an Indigenous health leader, a champion of refugees and sufferers of torture, a campaigner against slavery, a youth worker who has also tackled domestic violence, and a successful lawyer and refugee advocate.
I meet these people and I think, wow, these people I'm sharing the stage with are really great contributors to Australian society, and you feel the weight of expectation on you that, you hope that you're contributing in a similar way.
When Alan did the first clinical trial, no one else around the world was doing it. They had the guts to do it. It's fantastic. His work has allowed scientists around the world to continue working on the therapy, which is now shown to be successful in humans. So his work is crucial for what has been achieved by scientists worldwide.
To be Queenslander of the Year twice it seems like it's unfair on the rest of Queensland, really.
But I see it as an opportunity to represent the teams of people I've worked with, to represent the people whose diseases or conditions that we work on.
And Alan, you've chosen something that speaks directly, doesn't it, to your work, that is looking at the possibilities of stem cells from the nose and the capacity they've got to really change people's lives, particularly those who've been affected by spinal cord injuries.
Yes, it really represents my whole of my research career. I've kind of been obsessed with the sense of smell in one way or another, and then many years ago latched on to the concept of this regeneration, the process of that you can make new nerve cells every day, and that not only that we can find the stem cells and the other cells that lead to that regeneration.
I said to Alan when we were talking this morning that I'd expected a very small nose, or a cast of a nose, when I saw that he was including this in the exhibition, and to see this big scale model was something of a surprise. But that sits in your office normally?
Yes, it's been sitting on my office wall for 25 years, 30 years. So it's always there for visitors to come in and have the same reaction as you have.
My research interests have come from a basic understanding of how the nerve cells in the nose get regenerated. So we have in our noses sensory neurons which have to be regenerated throughout life because what we breathe in kills them. And so within there's a stem cell that leads to their replacement and regeneration and replacement, so that our sense of smell continues throughout our lives. In the last many years I've been using that kind of regenerative process to apply to other kinds of clinical problems like spinal cord injury. And we have used those cells in animals and then in humans to see if we can repair the spinal cord. So what we did was, in a human clinical trial, we took the cells out of people's noses. These people had paraplegia, so they were paralysed from the chest down. And we took the cells out, we grew them in the lab, in a dish, and we transplanted them back into their injured spinal cords just to make sure, to see if this was safe. We showed that it was safe. It was safe to do the surgeries, it was safe to grow the cells and put them back in, and we followed these people for 3 years and demonstrated that there were no adverse outcomes.
I've known Alan for a long time. I've worked in this field for 20 years and always been aware of his work. So I came to Griffith University when he received large funding, and I said to him straight away, I want to work with you. So it was a great opportunity. There were a couple of wonderful moments I remember seeing results from other trials around the world. One was a dog trial from University of Cambridge, and when I first saw the dog walking again, it raised the hairs on my arms. And then when I heard about the guy in Poland who'd had his spinal cord regenerated, again it was like a eureka moment. It was like, fantastic, this actually works. What we thought could happen is actually happening, and it was just unbelievable.
I was injured playing rugby union in 1994 at the age of 19, and I took up a real interest in medical research, scientific research, after meeting Christopher Reeve, the late Superman actor, and once he passed away, I really felt we'd lost our spokesperson to cure paralysis. So I set up the Pericross Spinal Research Foundation to focus on curing paralysis and focus on raising funds. Back then it was like, the field of research was so small, and the community didn't have a lot of, real sort of hope. And I guess, Alan's work's given everyone some promise, some hope. And now, I guess, from our foundation's point of view, we want to take it to the next stage and see that grow and evolve and develop the next phases of these trials.
meeting people with the diseases that we've become interested in is very motivating. It's very moving, and then to learn how the disease affects them and how their hope for treatment affects them and their families. It's very motivating. You can only do in research that which you get funding for, and so then I moved into a greater emphasis on the kind of disease in a dish and hereditary spastic paraplegia particularly because of funding, and you become opportunistic in the way that you do your research. So that and the schizophrenia research have become my main focus for the last 5 to 10 years. I guess all of the research that I'm now involved in says something about me. Okay, so I've got multiple myeloma, but now I do think about the future, and I can see a future in those projects. It could be a long future in some of those cases. But like all of us, once you overcome some kind of adversity and you start thinking more about the future, then it becomes indeterminate how long that will be.
Everything else in life just rolls to a stop.
The diagnosis is a shock to everybody, and of course the first thing you do is to go and see Dr. Google, and you read about the absolute worst statistics that you could imagine. Dr. Google is used by everybody, including doctors. As a scientist, I think the difference might be that I can perhaps distinguish some sites that are more likely to be believable than others.
Again, the faith in the doctors and the scientists that have done the research. I guess, with Alan being a scientist, I guess I just felt grateful for all those people that have done all that work to make it so that, there's a good treatment plan for him.
Once you get diagnosed with multiple myeloma, you'll have a treatment plan almost immediately. I went into hospital on a Sunday, they diagnosed the illness tentatively on a Tuesday, they confirmed it on a Thursday, and on Friday I was having treatment and was pretty much had, this is how it's going to be for the next 6 months with a stem cell transplant at the end of it. The fact that I study stem cells is kind of ironic, but it's mostly seen as ironic by other people. To me, the odds of me getting multiple myeloma are the same as anybody else in the community, which is pretty low.
He was so sick and so weak at first. Honestly, just getting on his feet was, I think, all he was thinking of. But he has been one of these patients who takes his recovery very seriously, and we're in a perfect spot here for him to recover. And so, it's been just literally, how many meters can he walk this day, and seeing that he can walk more.
I just don't know how my knowledge of biology and stem cells has helped me manage the fear and anxiety. Everyone has fear and anxiety. It helps me understand what the procedures are, what the disease is, and what the doctors are doing to control the disease. I used to ride to work on my bike probably 3 days a week, and that was about a 15-kilometre trip to work and back. I was mainly a commuter bicycle rider until my future wife, Elisa, introduced me to bicycle touring and going out for significantly long rides just for a day, you know. That's when I first started enjoying going for multi-day rides, you know, carrying everything on the bike and going out camping night after night, riding day after day. The world goes past at just the right speed. It's faster than walking, so you don't get bored. It's slower than driving a car, so that you absorb things as you go past, and you get the smells and the sounds of birds and all of that kind of feeling of being in nature as you're going through it.
Before Alan got sick, he was quite involved with, you know, the Lycra crowd and the road bike and such. But we had met someone with a recumbent electric assisted bicycle. And I think Alan just loved the technology and thought they were so cool, but probably knew that to suggest he needed one would have been, I would have thought that was pretty extravagant.
In the first 6 months where you have this kind of intensive periods of chemotherapy, and you're extremely weak. At that point, your future freezes. You know, when you've got a serious illness like that, your future just completely freezes, and you're just coming to terms with having a terminal illness and living the days as they come. At the time, I hadn't really considered that I'd ever be on another kind of bicycle.
When this bike arrived, it was clear to me right away that he'd made a perfect decision, because he could be out buzzing around like this crazy insect down the road, using as much of his own power as he had, and then relying on this electric assist otherwise.
Yeah, just stop and put it on.
Both of us, I think, were surprised that he would be back on the road bike with the damage that's been done to his spine, but he's just somehow managed to have luck with that, because he's pretty much back to as good as he was, I think.
You never lose the cells that are making cancers in your body. So maybe they'll be quiet for a while, maybe they'll be quiet for years, and then you'll need the chemotherapy drugs. But most people would be taking some kind of chemotherapy on a daily and weekly basis for the rest of their lives. I don't think a long term in the future, but I do think about trips I'd like to go on. I do like travelling, and I've got some bike tours coming up this year that I'd like to do. You know, some of them more well planned than others. I've got some cycling in Italy with some friends, and then some cycling in Germany with Lisa.
Well, like a lot of retired people, we think of places in the world we like to see, and maybe on bicycles.
One feels a huge responsibility to behave in a certain way, to be able to present your case, to represent, you know, the kind of research or the kind of activity for which I'm being honoured.
So Alan's nomination for Australian of the Year raises great awareness for us. It tells the scientific community and the general community that what we're doing here in Australia is great research that has impacts not just for Australia but worldwide.
The future looks really bright. There's no doubt about that. We don't know exactly what the outcomes will be. For someone in my situation that's been injured over 20 years, it could be a hard slog to get recovery and function. There's there's an answer there, like there's a cure there. We just need to keep digging and digging.
My advice to young people starting out studying science is probably the same as my advice to young people studying anything, and that is to follow your passion. You can't really perform well in any area of your life unless you're really passionate about it, really driven by it. You know, it's not something you can yawn your way through and get bored by. So if science is your passion, you know, do it, and then whether it leads to a life of a research scientist or whether it leads to a life of other aspects where you're using that science, a better understanding of the world around you in some way, that'll just flow, because you can't predict where your life's going to go. I hope that this award will really focus the attention on a few things. One is that importance of basics research, you know, and the focus on stem cells and their ability to provide new ways to study neurological diseases, particularly the rare neurological diseases. And then from that would be, you know, the hope to actually getting some treatments out there in the relatively short term for people with rare neurological conditions. It's that hope that progress is being made, and that's the kind of message that I'd be wanting to get out there.